Hey, my name is Brooke Ames. I'm a licensed clinical social worker and licensed drug and alcohol counselor in the states of New Jersey, Florida, and Delaware. So that means I can see any individuals residing in those states or currently staying in those states. So New Jersey, Delaware, and Florida. I see adolescents, young adults, and also couples. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the therapy modalities that I use when I'm working with individuals. So some of my favorites are called cognitive behavioral therapy, interpersonal therapy, and also motivational interviewing. So I wanted to discuss a little bit about what these are and how I work with individuals with them. So first, cognitive behavioral therapy is really taking a look at our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors and how they're all intertwined. A lot of times people will ask, okay, like what comes first? A thought, a feeling, or a behavior? It's kind of like the chicken or the egg. There's no way to tell. Situations are always kind of different. Sometimes a behavior could lead us to thinking and feeling some sort of way. Sometimes an intrusive thought could lead us into feeling or behaving some sort of way. Sometimes a feeling could have us thinking or behaving a different way. So there's no way to tell like what the gradual process is either way. They're all just kind of intertwined with one another. So our thoughts really have an impact on our feelings and behaviors a lot of the time. So I always give people this example when I'm talking about cognitive behavioral therapy. So if the thought comes first, it looks like this. Okay, the original thought is I'm ugly. The feeling that comes with that is anxiety and insecurity. Maybe I'm supposed to go out with my friends later that night. I'm supposed to meet them at the movies or something. Because I had this intrusive thought, because I'm feeling anxious and insecure now, I don't want to go out and meet with them. I'm not really feeling like putting on pants and going out, so I'm not going to go out. So that is an example of how a negative thought can directly impact our quality of life. Now, I'm not going to go out with my friends because I had this intrusive thought that's causing me to feel this type of way. So our thoughts, we can change. We can start to be aware of them throughout the therapy process. I help individuals gain that self-awareness to first be aware, like, okay, what are the thoughts that I'm having throughout the day? How am I speaking to myself throughout the day? Oftentimes, when we start to become aware of this, it's like really powerful because once we start to write it down, it's like, oh my gosh, the way I've been speaking to myself, I would never speak to someone else this way. Why am I speaking to myself this way? And no wonder I'm feeling like crap a lot of the time, right? So that awareness first is huge. Once we gain that awareness, we can start to change those negative thinking patterns. We can start to do the work to change those, which is also super cool because a lot of things, a lot of times deep rooted in there are like some core beliefs from childhood that we also start to do the work to change. Core beliefs are like not feeling good enough. And where does that come from? That could come from adverse childhood experiences, which is like my parents got divorced and I felt like I wasn't good enough to keep them together. My dad was addicted to substances and I didn't feel good enough for him to be able to stop. Things like that nature. So we start to do the work there to change those negative thinking patterns and to also change some of those core beliefs that really shift the lens that we're looking through, right? Because if I have a core belief of not feeling good enough, that's the pair of glasses I'm wearing, and that's how I'm viewing the world. So I'm going to look for experiences that justify that belief. So we start to do work there, which is also super cool. Feelings we cannot change. We cannot swallow them. We cannot suppress them. They demand to be acknowledged. We have to acknowledge them. We have to give them the respect that they deserve, and we have to identify them and cope with them. And hopefully we do the work to be able to start to identify those feelings, cope with those feelings, and then even a step further and express those feelings in our most intimate relationships so we can have deeper connectedness in those relationships. And then our behaviors, obviously, a lot of people already know this. We can work towards changing them. It's much easier said than done, though. A lot of times people are like, oh, well, if gambling is causing you all this harm, just stop. Just stop doing that. If spending money on your credit cards is giving you anxiety, just stop doing that. It's really not that simple. When we're talking about changing behaviors, it's very challenging. It's a really difficult thing to do. A lot of times these behaviors have existed for a very long time. Sometimes they've even come as a result of like defense mechanisms. So maybe this was like a way for me to protect myself or survive during a really tough time. Now it's no longer serving me, so I have to start to let it go. That's really difficult to do. When I'm talking to people about changing behaviors, I always challenge them to do this, which is like super silly, but is a really good example of how difficult it is to change our behaviors. I tell them to go in the shower and the shower backwards. So if you normally wash your hair first, wash your hair last and see how weird and uncomfortable and bizarre that feels. And that is just changing our behavior in the shower. So whatever it is that I'm working with people on and changing behaviors, I give them that analogy to illustrate like what I'm asking you to do is actually pretty freaking difficult. So give yourself some grace in the meantime, and also make sure we're also balancing this piece of self-care and taking really good care of ourselves so we don't increase that negative self-talk, those negative thinking patterns at all. So that's kind of like what CBT looks like. That's my favorite therapeutic modality, really one of my favorites. It's really powerful work that I'm able to do with people and change the way that they feel about themselves and really improve the quality of their life pretty quickly. The other one is interpersonal therapy. This is my favorite in couples work especially because it really points at what is happening in session. So even in individual therapy, if someone's like moving in their seat or like rolling their eyes or starts like fidgeting a bunch, interpersonal therapy starts to point at those things that are happening in session in real time. Like, wait a second, what's happening? We're moving our body a lot. Are we starting to get uncomfortable talking about this topic? Maybe we're starting to get emotional talking about this topic. What's happening that this is the reaction our body is having at this time? So that's why I really like that, because we're able to identify things that are actively happening in the session and gain awareness there too, which is also super cool. And then the last one that I really enjoy doing is motivational interviewing. This is really like encouraging people, helping people to identify their own strengths within themselves and helping them to really start to be comfortable in their own skin, gain that self-confidence, identify what it is that their strengths are, and start to feel good about those things, which is building our self-esteem, building our self-respect, building our self-confidence, which is also like one of my favorite things to do is, like I said before, is helping shift the way people are thinking about themselves, helping them to feel a little bit more comfortable in their own skin. So those are the three therapeutic modalities that I really hone in on in my sessions. There are bits and pieces of other modalities that I naturally have just taken from and incorporated into my sessions that I also think are super interesting and super powerful. They're bits and pieces that I take from internal family systems and attachment work, and I continue to learn about those things and implement them into my sessions. Also, some of the Gottman method in my couples work, because he did like evidence of like being able to predict whether couples were going to get divorced or not. And that's pretty powerful. So knowledge in the therapy process, knowledge for learning how to take care of ourselves and our relationships is really powerful. So anything that I can take and continue to learn and incorporate into my sessions, I continue to do. So that's a little bit of what therapy looks like with me. That's a little bit of the work that I do. Like I said, with adolescents, young adults, and couples in the states of New Jersey, Delaware, and Florida. It is all telehealth therapy at this time, which really provides flexibility to be able to be consistent in helping people take care of themselves in a society that's set up to be like super busy the majority of the time. People can be meeting with me on their lunch breaks or right after school, or they don't have to worry about like transportation and childcare too. So that's a little bit about me, a little bit about what I do. If you're interested in learning more, please visit our website, gaininggracellc.com. Shoot me over an email, brooke@gaininggracellc.com. Thanks for being here.